Good afternoon, everyone. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Yes, perfect. So I would like to welcome you. My name is Nicole Bryan. I am the branch manager at the Macon Branch of the Brooklyn Public Library. We had such an amazing event last year with the lovely women of the Eastern District United Order of the Tents that they are coming back this year to just have an in-depth conversation with the members and journey through their roots and their history. So I'm really excited. I'm going to sit back and enjoy as well as everyone else. So I'm going to pass it over to Vicki and Keisha, who will be leading the way. Just a few housekeeping rules. We ask that if you can keep your microphones on mute so that everyone can hear our speakers. We ask that you respect everyone's opinions. There will be time for Q&A. We also ask that you just be open, and we welcome you to the Brooklyn Public Library. And just to let you know that the meeting will be recorded. So if you don't want to put your cameras on, and if you with your comfort level. So we just wanted to just give you those housekeeping rules. So now, like I said, I'm gonna be quiet and hand it over to Vicki and Keisha. So I welcome you and thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you again, Nicole. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Women's History Month event, Reflections on Black Sisterhood and the United Order of Tents. I am Keisha Clinton.
And I am Vicki Wilkinson. We are co-chairs for this event.
And we are extremely humbled and honored to be a part of today's program.
Absolutely. Without further ado, we will begin with Dr. Kelly Britt, friend of the Tents, assistant professor of urban archaeology, from the Department of Archaeology at Brooklyn College, history of building historic preservation, connection to collective memory, connection to collective memory. Dr. Britt.
Thank you so much. As you said, it's a real honor to be here. And I just wanted to start off by thanking Nicole and the Brooklyn Public Library for sponsoring this and hosting the event, but especially to the United Order of Tents for the opportunity to just talk for a few minutes today on this most amazing panel about such an important site of Black women's history, right here in Bed-Stuy as well. As stated in the introduction, I'm an urban archaeologist, and I currently teach at Brooklyn College. I believe in researching history not for history's sake, but rather to inform the present so that we can change the future. So much of what I do is directly connected and rooted in advocacy and activism. So given the background of my research interests, and after moving to Bed-Stuy in 2011 with my daughter, I immediately became interested in this amazing home of the Tents at 87 McDonough Street. As many people here today, if they're from the area, can probably relate, the building has an aura that just lures you in and keeps you in awe as you walk by. As one of Dr. Robin Spencer's students so eloquently stated during a field trip with her to the home, quote, "I can feel the ancestors," end quote. And I think many who have walked by can attest to this. I was lucky enough to be introduced to the Tents in 2018 through my landlord, a longtime resident of the neighborhood, and from then on have been working with them as a friend of the tent to help preserve this important history. So I have a really short slideshow for you today to just sort of give you some pictures. And I thought, since today's talk is really going to be focusing on the reflections of Black sisterhood, and so many memories are rooted in place and physical locations, it might be nice to sort of ground the discussion today in the home of the Tents. So let me just share my screen and show you a few slides. So for those of you that are not from Brooklyn, this is just a short little picture or a sweet little picture that shows where Bedford-Stuyvesant is located, which is sort of the center north part of Brooklyn. And so that will sort of situate you here today in where we sit. Before the Tents purchased the property, let me get my slideshows working. In the 1940s, the Eastern District became their home. The building was actually built in 1863. It's made of brick. Its style is called Italianate or French Second Empire. And its first owner was this developer believed to be William A. Parker. The sort of long-term residents of the McMahon family sort of followed directly after that, after it was built, and it continued into sort of the early 1900s. The McMahon family was a prominent member of the Irish Catholic community here in Brooklyn, and he was a self-made millionaire from the transportation investments. I'm not doing any details on the family today, but if you are interested in sort of more of the history of the house per se, I really recommend Suzanne Spelling's 3-part series in the Brownstoner, which is accessible online, and she gives you more information about that. As we know, the Tents have a long history as an organization, both here in New York, but also throughout the Eastern Seaboard. And it includes work in the community even prior to the purchase of 87 McDonough Street. Thanks to the work of several graduate students, first being Scott Ferrara from the CUNY Graduate School, we were able to sort of comb through the archives. These were newspaper clippings, and be able to map sort of all the places that had events with Tents members speaking in them in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. And while I was interested in doing some of this research, is that even prior to the Tents ownership in the 40s, the space or the house, as you can see in this picture, was known as a mutual hospital. So through some work through another graduate student, Madison Aubie, who's now at the PhD program at UCLA, she was able to find some of this map work that was able to indicate this. And more recently, I've been combing through more historical documents and finding that between the McMahon family and when the Tents owned it, several organizations and churches actually were in ownership of the house, all connected to mutual aid work. So what I found really amazing is that by researching this building, it's almost like the building had a calling for mutual aid work and benevolent work, and that the Tents answered their call. As many of you probably know, this is a picture from 1929, looking from the back of the house, looking south, and that's the old carriage house that apparently was probably used as part of the hospital. But mutual aid and benevolent societies, as we've just witnessed in the COVID-19 pandemic, are a necessary part in communities. In the Progressive era, which was from about 1896 to 1916, the African American club movement was a huge and vital part of these this role of mutual aid in communities. They were activists in community collective action for a variety of things, from anti-lynching campaigns like those fought by Ida B. Wells to campaigns for women's suffrage and the development of schools. It really was the African American women's club movement that was making huge history with these actions. And so while the Tents home is physically protected through its placement on the National Register of Historic Places, both individually as a home, but it's also, as you can see through this map, it's in a historic district. The one thing that I really would love to sort of stress today, particularly since we're learning and we're going to hear these amazing memories and reflections, is that historic preservation, while it is wonderful to enhance the physical aspects of it, which may enhance the block, it might even increase property values, but it's really meaningless unless you have the non-material aspects preserved. In other words, the memories, what we are here for today, the reflections, the people, the events that embody this space. That's really what is in need of preservation, not once again for history's sake, but for those in the present with thoughts of the future. Heritage is not static. Heritage is constantly changing, it's constantly in creation, and it constantly is living in the present. So for me and for others, I really hope that you see that the power of preservation lies in the memories and the legacy of the people and events that embody the space, which is what we're here for today. So without further ado, I just want to thank you for these brief moments. And here's some information to follow the tents, either on Instagram, their website, or their email. But I also want to spend it's a few minutes to sort of introduce you to the tents through this wonderful 2016 documentary that was done by student Allison Tratner. And I just need to reshare my screen to get to the video. We're just going to watch the first few minutes. And please let me know if you cannot hear. Oops, there we go.
Sweetheart, oh, friend, sweetheart, oh, friend, that for me too, a word of care. My name is Dolores Lovelace. I live right across the street from the tent, and I used to wonder about it. I was just very, very curious about it, of what was going on in there. I used to see the women going in and out of the building, and they were always dressed in white. A friend of mine belonged to the tents, and she says, "Why don't you join?" And after thinking about it, praying about it, I said, all right, I would join. And it's been quite an experience. I would like it to be restored back to its original state, because it was just so beautiful, and just to see it, just going to waste, it breaks my heart. Lois, how you feeling? Doing pretty good. Good, glad to hear that. You? I'm blessed. I'm pretty good too. Catch your breath. Catch your breath. Yes. Oh, my name is Essie Gregory. I was born in the state of South Carolina. Lived there until I was 16 years old, moved to Brooklyn, New York. First time I ever heard of the United Order of Tents, probably 28 years ago. The door to the room was closed, and they said, you cannot enter. And when I peeped inside, it was dark inside. Then I became inquisitive. I said, I want to join that organization to see what they do in the dark.
My name is Annie L. Williams, and I was born in North Carolina. And I was just coming out of high school, graduate, and I turned 18, and the lady said, why don't you come on and join? Come and join. You'll enjoy it, because she was wanting to recruit a lot of new young people to come in. So I said, okay, I'll join.
I was born in Harlem Hospital. You want to know the year too? Many years ago. And my family moved here in to Bed-Stuy in 1945. This building helped form me to be the person I am today. My mother was a member. She brought me in. I used to come here as a little girl, and I would see all these older women sitting around, talking. I wanted to know what was going on. They wouldn't tell me. And when I became 16, that's when I joined my mother with the older ladies. And I've been with the older ladies ever since. So now I'm an older lady, but it's okay. So now I can sit in there with them too.
The history of the United Order of Tents. This organization to some may seem to be a new thing. To others, it may seem ancient. Most of us have heard of the Underground Railroad, which was born in the dark days of slavery.
The name of the organization is the United Order of Tents, J.R. Giddings and Jolliffe Union of the Eastern District number 3. That's this district here in New York. It's a long name, but that's what the name is. Well, the organization was founded in the 1800s, founded during slavery time.
It's an organization that's Southern based. In the South, they're very strong. There are a lot of tents in the South.
There were noble women in those days who were pure in heart and purposely determined the future generation should not be treated as they were in 1874.
These women, under the cover of darkness, encouraged and transferred many who were anxious for a new day to leave the slave states and seek refuge in the free states.
These courageous women decided to form a society
and asked Mr. Giddings and his partner if they could use their names. They consented, and hence the United Order of Tents, J.R. Giddings and Jolliffe Union was born.
And it's run completely by women, all women. And it's the oldest Black women's organization in America.
Thank you all for that time, and I will make sure that we put the link for the video in the chat so you can watch the entire video. But now I'd like to turn it back to Keisha. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Britt, for that amazing conversation earlier. Some history that I didn't even know. So thank you for that. And also for the video. Well, we are about to continue with our platform. And for all those who are on today, we have the privilege to introduce to you guest speaker, Sister Annette Lane Harrison Richter, the great-great-granddaughter of Sister Annetta Lane, co-founder of the United Order of Tents. Sister Richard.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, good. I'm on the phone from Washington, D.C. I certainly wish I could be there in person with you today, but unfortunately, I was unable to make it. But I'm so delighted to be with you. As the introduction said, I'm the great-great-granddaughter of Annetta Lane, for whom I'm named. She was my great-great-grandmother, my maternal great-great-grandmother. And somehow the name Annette Lane has come down to the 6th generation of our family. Her first name, Annette, her maiden name was Minkins, and her married name was Lane. Then she had 2 daughters, Adelaide, who was my great-grandmother, and Sally. Then it went to the next generation. Emma Lane Harrison was my grandmother. Then her daughter was Annette Harrison Richter, and Annette Lane Harrison Richter, and my niece is Kathy Annette Richter. So we're so delighted that it's come down through 6 generations of our family. Annette Lane was a slave on a plantation in Virginia, and she was a house slave. In that capacity, she had to take care of the plantation owner's children. So she sat with them when they had their lessons, and she secretly taught herself to read and write. And of course, she could have been killed. had her owner found out she was literate, but she was attentive. She taught herself to read and write. So when she was freed, she was literate. And she was a very, very religious woman. She had a vision from God to band Black women together to look after one another. So this she did in 1867. Annetta was also a nurse, and she worked with the Underground Railroad because in the capacity as a nurse, she was free to move about the plantation, taking care of others. So she worked with the Underground Railroad, carrying messages for slaves who were planning to escape. I often think about what it was like in those early days for our kid sisters. Can you imagine how they had just come out of slavery, where they were told everything to do, not just told, but ordered, what time to get up, what to do during the day, what time to go to bed, with whom they should mate. Every aspect of their lives was controlled by somebody else. But now that they were free, they could make their own decisions. So I imagine that they met in the evening after their main tasks were done around an open fire. But just let your imagination go with this. Just let it go. They were seated around an open fire, probably mending. They had just tatters to wear. So they were constantly mending and making quilts. Perhaps someone would get up from time to time to stir the pot over the fire or stir the fire itself because they were probably making food for the next day's meal. Their tasks were never, ever done. So they sat around making quilts, mending. Perhaps they were singing softly, humming, maybe hymns. But they were happy because they were free. They could make their own decisions now. So just imagine how excited they were when they gathered like that to decide on how they were going to run their organization. What positions of offices would they have? What would the titles be? How would they address one another? And you know, they didn't want people who were outside the organization to find out about it or what they were doing. So they came up with passwords, signals, or some type of script known only to members. And in the early days, when they gathered, they would pay for membership dues. And those dues went toward an insurance policy that most used to pay for their burial. So these women who say were just 2 years out of slavery were able to have a good Christian burial. And that meant so much to them. It meant everything. Each subordinate tent or chapter has a name and a number. The very first tent was Lydia tent number 1. And all the women in my family have had the honor and privilege of belonging to Lydia tent number 1. I can say I'm a very, very proud member, as is my niece, Kathy Annette Richter. The month of June is very special to me because June meant Kent's Convention. I grew up in the house that Annetta Lane built in Norfolk, Virginia. My brother and I were the 5th generation to live in that house. I understand that when Annetta built it, she said she wanted generations of her family to live there. So we were blessed to have 5 generations of my family living in that home. And my grandmother, Emma Lane Williams Harrison, resided in that house also, she and my grandfather. And mother and my grandmother, whom we called Emmy, were so excited as June approached because they'd be making their plans to go to the Kent's Convention. All of my mother's adult life, she worked at the 10th Hall, which was right around the corner from our home. And she eventually became the treasurer and endowment secretary. So her whole adult life was built around working for the tent. So someone once asked me, when did you join the tent? How long have you been a tent? And I said, since birth. It may be a bit of exaggeration, but I'm sure my mother and my grandmother enrolled me in the juvenile department of the tent the day I was born. Sometimes when you have a quiet moment, and that doesn't happen with us too often because we're also caught up with our phones and our tablets and our laptops. But maybe at night, when you're drifting off to sleep, just try to imagine what it must have been like for those 10 sisters in the early days. They must have been so happy, so excited. It was a new life for them, a new horizon, new challenges to meet. And we are like that too. Every day we meet new challenges, new horizons. So we have a lot in common with our early 10 sisters. And please think of them. They're looking down on us, blessing us, praising us, and pushing us to go forward. They were women of such courage, such dignity, such integrity, and we must follow in their footsteps. Thank you so much for having me join you today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sister Richard, for sharing that a perspective that only you can give. And it just makes those of us who are members of the tent, stand up a little taller and a little prouder, and reminding us why we exist, why we're here, what we're doing, and how we have to continue to forge ahead. We are working, for those of you who saw the flyer, her picture is on the flyer, and she is, I can honestly say, one of the most beautiful and dignified women I have ever seen. And we will work to share that with you as we go on in the program. And moving forward with the program, it is my distinct honor to introduce guest speaker, the Honorable Inez B. Barron, former juvenile member of the Eastern District Grand Tent Number 3, United Order of the Tents, Brooklyn, New York. The Honorable Inez D. Barron, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's a pleasure, an honor, and a privilege to have been asked to join with you on this occasion. My name again is Inez Barron, and I was a member of the J.R. Giddings and Jolliffe Union Elizabeth Smallwood Tent Number 99, the juvenile division. And I didn't really understand all of the procedures that we did as juveniles, but I understood that for an organization to be effective, it had to be able to have structure, it had to be able to have predictability, and it had to be able to have members who were committed to what they were doing. So I must have joined the tent, the junior division, in about 1958, may have been the time that I joined. And at that time, the tent building was beautiful. It was magnificent. It went all the way through to the other side. It was at full block from one side from McDonough Street back to the next street. And we had our meetings on Saturdays, and we went through the program and the procedure. And there was as someone had said, secrecy that was a foundational element of what the tent was doing. And if you think back to that time just out of slavery, when you had to be, in fact, very dependent on one another for your survival. And if you were a part of those who were going to be escaping, you had to, in fact, be committed. You had to have all kinds of signs and symbols. They talk about the quilts that our ancestors hung out, which had secret messages engraved in those quilts, embedded in those quilts, different signs telling people where to go, which way to go. And there are all kinds of signs. I know that my grandfather was in the Masons, and he said, oh yes, we Masons have all kinds of signs, which we don't share. If you're not a member of the organization, you don't know what those signs are. So those signs were similar to signs that we had and symbols that we had in the juvenile division. And those of us who were in there know that there were rotations through the different positions, and you rotated around, and you were able to function in that capacity. So your leadership skills were developed. And it wasn't really apparent to me that that's what was happening, but someone interviewed me for a news article, and I shared to her that I had been a member of the juvenile division. And she said, well, that's why you're so comfortable and prepared to be able to carry on business, conduct business. I said, I hadn't made that connection, but certainly that is in fact, a part of what it was that helped to get me through. When I say that, I just want to share that I was an assembly member in the New York State Assembly for 5 years, and I followed that with 8 years in the New York City Council. So those kinds of legislative bodies are very deliberative, very distinct, and they in fact require you to be able to follow certain order in order for the business to be conducted. And that's what we did. That's what we did. The secret handshakes, the passwords, all of those things were in fact a part of the training that I received as a juvenile member of Elizabeth Smallwood tent number 99. But in addition to the formal business that was conducted, which was, of course, you had your opening, your password, and your financial reports, and the protocols were all followed. But in addition to that, we had fun. We were young girls. We went into the front yard, which was beautifully kept, immaculately kept. We had the quote Easter egg hunt, where those adults who supervised us had previously gone out and hidden eggs, and we went out with our little baskets looking for these eggs that had been hidden. We had all kinds, we had fashion shows, we had events that were held there. The kitchen was always a very busy, busy place. There was always lots of food, and there were fish fries that were conducted and other events that were held to raise money to sustain the tent. So we do know, of course, that over time, many of those members became aged and infirmed, and some of them have passed away. But the work that these elderly women did and the sacrifice that they made, putting their money together, and all of the contributions that they made to sustain that organization and that building, that property, is certainly worthy of recognition. Now, my mother is Margaret Smith, and so many people who are affiliated with the organization and with First AME Zion Church, just a stone's throw away at the corner, are also very much involved in having contributed to that organization. We heard from Ms. Peterson, Ms. Williams, and others who have been in touch with me and who are making sure that my mom, who is now 99, and God willing, this August will be 100, that her status is maintained in that organization. So it was a great time, lots of fun, as I said, in addition to the procedures and the business that was conducted. We had fun. We were in the yard. We had to come sometimes and help clean it up. So you built that level of responsibility. And the organization, the United Order of Tents, is certainly a significant link and a monument in our history of growing out from being enslaved, moving into our own ability to put our pennies and dollars together to purchase that beautiful building. And it's certainly in need of repair. And I know that there's probably going to be an opportunity for people to make some kinds of support for that. But I just wanted to say that I appreciate so much the opportunity to give acknowledgement to the United Order of Tents, to the establishment of that body, to the significance of what they gave to our history, coming from the South, as has been said, coming to New York and having Eastern District and having the order. And I have some of my mom's artifacts, and I do have some of the programs that she kept. My mom is I guess she would be the archivist, keeping things stored and keeping things. She thought everything about the tents was very important. So she had some of her own personal documents and receipts and programs from events that were held over the years. And it certainly is an honor to be able to say I've preserved those instruments. I'm trying to get them better organized so that they can be shared in another kind of format at an appropriate time. But certainly I want to say that the United Order of Tents is significant to our work here in New York. And I just see that there are some other folks who are on here whose faces are familiar. I see Sister Sophia Bandelli is on here, and I want to give acknowledgement to her, the work that she has done, and all of those who are here that I may not have met personally. We share a common bond, and I look forward to continuing to work with you as we go through preserving the tent. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your collective memories as a juvenile member of the tents and really providing a beautiful portrait of who the tents were and who the tents will continue to be and how important the organization is to the community. And so now we will have reflections from Sister Levine, the Eastern District Deputy Senior Member, on what the tents mean to me.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you see me?
We can see you.
Thank you very much. I'm technology challenged at 70 years old, but I am so proud to be a part of the program. First, give thanks. I'm so thankful that the United Order of Tents existed before and is still now relevant. I'm one of the senior members, but I'm still a baby in the tents. I'm older than some and younger than many. Coming to the tents, I was not prepared to receive the total sisterhood that I received. Coming into the tents, well, to me, it was like a community of women, but I didn't truly understand the sisterhood that the tents offered and still offers me. I've been just reflecting, and I remember some of the sisters that have now passed on and they're with the ancestors, but I remember the lessons through their actions that they instilled in me. I'm so happy that I'm able to be a part of new tent sisters coming in with brand new ideas, and being in the 21st century, they've brought us into the 21st century in terms of how can I say it? I'm lost for words in a minute. In terms of their organizational skills, in terms of their vision. I'm one of the tent sisters that I remember the past. I can envision, but the new members, I'm thankful that I'm sitting in this seat now to see the tents continue. When I came into the tents, sisterhood to me is important, but the tents have allowed me to be that more grounded as a sister, that more grounded in the communal aspect of being a sister. We have the sick committee. We have the death committee or bereavement committee when someone dies. The connection that I was allowed to be a part of and still am allowed to be a part of is more spiritual than physical. It's more, I am my sister's keeper. It's more, I want for you what I want for myself. I see that and I feel that in each and every 10th sister that I've come in contact with that may have passed on right to the present. I'm thankful that we, myself and the others, that we're able to appreciate the legacy that has been given to us, given to me. I have sat in seats in the rooms. Right now, the tents is not the same way it was when I first was initiated into the Order of Tents, but the spirit of those women, our ancestral spirits, are still there. They still move us when we don't want to move. I could say that for myself and the other sisters because I see it in them. We're encouraged to, I am encouraged to look to my left and look to my right and feel the presence of those ancestors, those strong women that with nothing, they did so much. They never looked at the glass half emptied, always the glass totally full, not even half full, but totally full. The power of prayer that these elders, these ancestors had that was able to move them through the darkest of times. And those energies I feel with me. I feel their strength so that I always say, this is a legacy that we must, as women of color, that we must preserve. This is a legacy that we cannot bow our head or bow our back and say that we are tired. Because when there was no word saying, come, let's go, the actions of the 10th sisters said, come, let's go. There was no social media. There was many things that we take for granted now. The strength that I draw from our ancestors that was in those halls, it's hard to totally express. It's more of a spiritual than a physical building. It's more of a calling that any woman that would say, let me read the history of the tents. That's because those ancestors are calling them. Come and do your duty. Come and be a part of our legacy. Come in and give back and give back. Because that's what they always did. They gave back. They fed the needy. They took care of the sick. They gave back. They gave refuge to those that was running. They gave back. And we have an honor, we have a duty as women, Black women from all over the diaspora to say, those that are in Brooklyn and in another state, let me lend a hand, a foot, a heart, a hand to this organization because we are because they was. So I can go on and on and on about how I've been enriched with this experience of the sisterhood of the tents. At 70, I believe that there's so much more work to do, and I see the sisters that are willing to do it. I'm thankful. I'm lost for words sometimes. I'm so thankful, my sisters, for being a part of this organization and sisterhood. The sheroes that came before me, I am so proud to walk the walk that they walked. I thank you all for being a witness to this historical moment, because we are making history. And I'm asking, I pray I'm not out of order, but I'm asking the Black girl magic that is happening right now, the Black woman magic that's happening right now. Come and visit the tents and be a part of it. I thank you. I thank you for the time.
Thank you so much, Sister Golden, in sharing your remarks and reflections as a well-seasoned member of the tents. And just as a new, younger member, we appreciate that you and those who are seasoned members are continuous keepers of the gate of the legacy of the tent. And I'm sure those that are younger and newer will do all that we can to continue moving that forward. Just thank you for all that you have done and to be an example for us. Moving forward in the program, we will now have reflections from Sister Erica Buddington, our public relations extraordinaire, as a new member, to discuss what the tents means to her. Sister Buddington.
Thank you, Sister Wilkinson. I appreciate you. Hi, my name is Erica Buddington, and I'm a new member of the Eastern District Grand Tent number 3 of the United Order of Tents, J.R. Giddings and Jalafa Union. And that's as of 2021. And saying that sentence in this moment humbles me. The power in it is something that I can only explain in the best way I know how, and that's through story. So I'm an educator and historian, and last year during one of my history hunts, I came across the Bed-Stuy headquarters of the United Order of Tents online. And the minute I saw the house, I knew that it felt familiar. And when that happens, when that feeling happens to me, I go through all of my books because I'm like, I've seen this before. I've come across this and I need to know where I've seen it. So I went through all of my books, and then I came across a book that I have about Bedford-Stuyvesant, and there the image of the headquarters was. And I said, wow. And so I don't like to look at the context if it's something I can get to. I would prefer to kind of look at the geography, the architecture, see history up close. I threw on my jacket, grabbed my notebook, and I walked 15 minutes from my home here in Bed-Stuy to the headquarters. And my friend was with me, and the entire time that we were walking, a feeling was growing inside of me. It was something familiar, and I couldn't put my finger on what it was. And I just remember saying to myself, this journey, this walk right here, it's important. I'm not sure why, but it is. And so as we got there, got closer, the feeling grew and it grew. And once we stood in front of the house, I remember reading the inscription on the front of the door. And I said, okay, I'm finally gonna look up the context. And I looked up the inscription, and the first thing I read was, organized in 1867 by 2 formerly enslaved women, Annetta M. Lane of Norfolk, Virginia, and Harriet R. Taylor of Hampton, Virginia. The United Order of Tents is a Christian fraternal benevolent organization managed predominantly by Black women. And that was the familiar feeling. I knew immediately in that moment, that was the ancestors walking us there. And so I can't say this lightly, having the opportunity to join this organization has been an honor. It is one that is filled with community service, with blessings, with wisdom, and most importantly, the reason we're all here today, sisterhood, something that I've been witnessing since the moment that I stepped into the organization. So having the opportunity to join also felt aligned with where I come from in my upbringing. I come from a lineage of service workers. I'm in a family of matriarchs that have done exactly what the tents do every single day. They are caregivers, social workers, nurses, providers, and so much more. And being surrounded by sisters who've done exactly this on their own and as a collective feels all too familiar. So I echo Sister Wilkinson's sentiments about standing up a little bit taller. Every single time I walk those 15 minutes to go to a tent meeting, not at the headquarters, but nearby, I feel a little bit taller. I know that I'm standing on a foundation of incredible sacrifice and work. Because that familiar feeling that I talked about earlier, it's grown into one of knowing that being a part of this continuing legacy of sacrifice started by our ancestors is one that I will never take lightly and carry forward. I hope that all of you watching continue to join the tent on our journey, because as Sister Levine just said, we still have so much work to do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sister Buddington, for those words. And as you were saying them, I was getting emotional and choked up. And I said, you know what? I have that feeling too. And it's an incredible sense of belonging that that I know that I have, and that we will continue to have into this in this organization. With that being said, we will now have some remarks by Sister Harriet L. Peterson, the Right Worthy National Grand Superintendent.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. You've heard a lot. You've heard a lot today about this organization, how it started, when it started, and who started it. And as you heard the other sisters say, the seniors and the new members, this is an organization that builds character. I've been a member of the United Order of Tents since I was a child. My mother brought me in as a child. I was a juvenile also, until I was 16 years old. And at 16, I moved from juvenile to being a subordinate tent with the adults. And I think if it weren't for the United Order of Tents, I don't know where I would be. I might not even be alive, because so much was happening back then in the 60s and 70s. But I stayed with the tents. I stayed with the tents. And I'm so glad I did. And today, I was a bit nervous and excited and happy about this platform today. And I'm so glad and thankful to be here. And I love my tent sisters, all of them, all of them. And this is not something I take lightly. As I said, I've been in the tent just about all my life. And Sister Levine said she's 70. Well, I'm a little bit older than her. But I have spent my whole life in the United Order of Tents. And I love it. I love it. And as you already told, we used to have a lot of fun. And being a juvenile was fun, because we would have our meetings. We go on trips. The guardian would take us on trips. We had lawn parties, birthday parties on the lawn. People would have wedding receptions. So a lot was going on at that building. And as she said, the kitchen was always busy. There was always somebody frying up chicken, frying fish, making macaroni and cheese, you know. And that was done to raise funds, because everything took funds. And I remember many Saturdays being in that kitchen, working with them, serving food, cooking food, preparing food. And another part of the legacy of the United Order of Tents, our mission then, now, and always will be, is to feed the hungry, take care of the sick, and bury the dead. That's what we do. That's what we do, because we know there's always somebody getting sick, somebody's always hungry, and somebody's always passing away. But that's what the United Order of Tents is about. And yes, we go to our meetings. Yes, we wear white. Yes, we have our convention, which is national convention, and that's people from other sisters from other states. We all meet, and we have our national convention, and that is where you can really see the sisters. You see all these women in white. It's something to see. It really is. So I am thankful that my mother brought me in, and a lot of secrets. But my mother didn't tell me anything. I didn't know the secrets until I came in and worked around the house. I sat in every seat and worked my way around the house. And my mother didn't divulge any secrets. And when my mother passed away, I still didn't know any secrets. It wasn't until I moved up or appointed up that I learned certain things. So life, as long as we're living, we're learning. We should be learning. And I am still learning. But I enjoyed this forum today. I really did. And it's very informative. And anybody who didn't know anything about the tents, I think they know something now. And we have a website. We're on the internet. You can find us. And we're at 87 McDonald Street. We're not there all the time, but we are there. So you can get in touch with any of us. And God has blessed us. Through it all, he has blessed us. And I'm thankful, and I know my tent sisters are thankful. And today was just a blessed day for me, especially. And I want to close with, we are still going to be there, and we're going to move forward. We're going to restore our building, and we're going to increase our membership. A lot of things are going to happen, a lot of good things. So that's what I'm looking forward to. And you'll be able to see it. You'll be able to see it. So I thank you for your time. Thank you, and God bless each and every one of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sister Peterson, for sharing your wisdom and your experience with us. It's always an honor to be at your feet to learn from you and the other seasoned members. Next, we have remarks and thank yous from Sister Essie E. Gregory, President of the Executive Board. Sister Gregory. Please unmute, Sister Gregory.
Okay, thank you for allowing me. Good afternoon, my sisters and brothers. I have the easy job this afternoon. Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. Those two words express gratitude, humility, understanding, as well as acknowledgement. I am here because I need to say all those things and more to a group of impressive women. Nicole Bryan, branch manager, Macon Street Library, Brooklyn Public Library. A simple thank you is an understatement for hosting this event for the Eastern District Grand Tent number 3. You made this program possible today, and I extend heartfelt thanks to you and your library staff. Dr. Kelly Britt, friend of the tent, please accept our gratitude for an extraordinary presentation. You piqued our interest, and we yearn to learn more. A more dedicated friend we could not have had. Sister Richter, great-great-granddaughter of one of our co-founders, Annetta Lane. Please accept our profound thanks for sharing your inspiring reflections on Black sisterhood and the United Order of Tents. They were fantastic. What a privilege to listen to a descendant of one of our co-founders. Honorable Inez D. Barron, what can I say? Former juvenile member of the United Order of Tents. Heartfelt thanks for the reflection you shared on the earlier years of Eastern District Grand Tent number 3. It was our privilege that you enlightened us as well as inspired us to move forward. Your words spoke volumes of the Eastern District Grand Tent number 3, as well as the United Order of Tents, and will remain a lasting part of our memories. Sister Akosa Levine, senior member and Eastern District Grand Tent number 3 Grand Deputy, heartfelt appreciation for your presentation on what the tents mean to you. It glorified the name of the United Order of Tents, the oldest Black female organization in the country, and inspires us to keep our founders' work alive. Sister Erica Buddington, new member, who made sure this event was publicized via social media. Profound thanks for your presentation on what the tents mean to you. I know everyone listening was fascinated by a new member who have such depth of connection with the United Order of Tents. Sisters Clinton and Wilkerson, thank you for your superb leadership of this committee. To this committee, Sisters Donna Mason, Erica Buddington, Ebony Golden, Akosa Levine, I appreciate your team effort, cooperation, and dedication in putting this program together in such a short time. Congratulations on the splendid job you have done. Believe me, you are second to none. If I could describe today's program in one word, it would be amazing. Lastly, thanks you to everyone who joined on this Zoom gathering this afternoon, whether you connected via telephone or camera. Without your presence, this program would be pointless. I ask that you continue to support us. Follow us on Instagram and/or visit our website. Both will be listed in the chat. Have a grand day.
Thank you, Sister. Thank you, Sister Gregory. And now we will have time for Q&A. If you have questions, please enter it in the chat. Please enter any questions you have in the chat.
Or any reflections you may have, please enter it also in the chat. Or if you want to say any words, you may come on and say those as well.
Just please raise your hand so that we can recognize you.
No questions?
No questions. Sister Clinton, are you ready to share the, oh, we have 2 raised hands. Let's see. Miss Bandel. can you come off of mute and say your remarks or ask your question? And then we also see you, Ms. Carleen Jean, but Ms. Vendel.
Yeah, I think I'm off mute. I'm sorry I'm not on camera right now, but I just want to say how much I appreciated today's program. I consider myself a friend of the Tents because my church met at the Tents organization last 10 or 12 years ago. We would meet there on Sundays and we became familiar with them. But I'm most pleased and really ecstatic with what I consider the new energy for the Tents. This is very beautiful, very important, so that we honor the old and we welcome the new. This organization as a Black women's space should really continue. And I appreciate the honorable beloved Inez Barron for being, who she is and having a really important role by being the archivist for some materials. That's so important. So my support, of the tent continues. I commend Professor Britt and Professor Robin for their interest and their blending scholarship and sisterhood. So hats off to everybody, hats off, galas off, and I look forward to continuing my support. Thank you.
Thank you. And might I say that your picture is gorgeous.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Carleen Jean, you can come off mute and ask your question or give a remark.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much. It was so transformative to witness this, to see all the love and sisterhood that's in this space. So mostly just giving everyone their flowers. I am just very transformed and, I'm just gonna shoot my shot. Like I would love to, to be part of it in some sort of way, even if it's just supporting and helping clean up the space and making sure that, everything's in order. I remember folks were mentioning, the sense of responsibility, like that is something that I'm really interested in. And anyway, I know that it's a lot of mutual aid going on. I'd love to support if there's anything that's going on with like the homeless encampment suites going on, just tons of ways that we can help out our community in order to fight the gentrification and the colonization of Brooklyn, on Weeksville, on the Lenape land. So this is really transformative to me, very self-determined. And I just think it's really beautiful that there's a Black woman sisterhood in this way. And so I'd love to be part of it, or at least a friend to it, and a sort of support. So thank you.
Thank you. Sister Clinton, do you wanna? We have a hand raised, a Zoom user? Whose hand?
That's me.
Okay.
I just like to say this was fantastic, and I really appreciate my special daughter Kelly inviting me, Dr. Kelly, and promote just from a couple of years just talking about this. This is the second time I've attended the presentation, and in some way I will help. But it's just amazing to hear the story, and thank you for putting this together.
Thank you for coming. We also, if you look into the chat if you would like any further information, the email address has been placed in the chat. Do we have any other questions or comments or remarks? Okay, Sister Clinton, can you please share the save the date? We do have a community event coming up with a grant from the Laundromat Project, and we would love for you to attend. And we're gonna have the save the date come up in a moment.
Give me 1 second. Before I share that, I would like to share, if I can, the picture of, give me 1 second. of Sister Annette Lane Harrison Richardson. I just want to share that so everyone can, not sure if you can see her picture.
We see it.
You see it.
Okay. This beautiful lady is the descendant of our co-founder. So we just want
Isn't she gorgeous and so distinguished?
Yes. Okay. And hope everyone can see my screen. We, as Sister Wilkerson mentioned, we have a save the date for.
Sorry, Keisha, you have to stop sharing and reshare for the flyer for the save the date.
Gotcha. Okay, give me 1 second. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Here's our save the date for our laundromat project that Sister Wilkerson was talking about. It's the Sankofa. Our theme is Sankofa, connecting the past to the present to build for the future. And we hope that everyone who is on the call will come out and listen to more stories about the wonderful order, the United Order of the Tents. We have a special project on that date, and we hope that you'll be there.
Yes. Sister Gregory, we are receiving a few questions regarding membership. We defer to you to respond to that question.
Anyone interested in membership should contact us via email or our website. There is a form there they can contact us.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, the time in May is going to be from 11 to 1, and it will be on the lawn of the tent house.
Further information will be forthcoming to provide further detail. And also you can email us at or go to our website to obtain further information about the upcoming event.
Or our Instagram page.
Okay, so I think that concludes our event. I am Vicki Wilkinson, and my co-chair is
Keisha Clinton. And we just
co-chairs for
thank you once again for coming out to join us for this intimate discussion. And we look forward to many, many more projects in the future.
Have a
Thank you
great day,
again.
everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Have a blessed day, sisters. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and
Thank you,
goodbye from
sisters.
Washington, D.C.